Good morning. I think we're ready to start now. Of course, I'm Jennifer Martin, and welcome everybody to St. Thomas University. We're going to have 2 fantastic days of panels, wonderful speeches, talks, camaraderie, and everything, hopefully, that you guys are expecting. I do want to say at the outset, make sure that we thank our sponsors, West Academic, Bloomberg, Wolters Kluwer, and Cali, who have really helped us to make this a very, very nice event. When you guys came through the breezeway, there are a number of exhibit tables, and one of them is actually a reprint table. So if you brought copies of your papers or reprints to exchange with anyone who might want some reading on this lovely trip, please feel free to exchange some there. I would like to right now introduce Monsignor Franklin Casal. He is the president of St. Thomas University and would like to welcome you to our gathering today.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Jennifer, and welcome to everyone here. As a president of a university that has a school of law, I have a special feeling for lawyers, both law students, law professors, and lawyers in general. And I know that they're very smart people, but this group must be absolutely brilliant, since you had enough sense to have your international conference in Miami in February, where the rest of the country is envying us. So welcome to sunny South Florida, and welcome to our beautiful campus. Just let me spend a few minutes telling you about St. Thomas University, which I love to do. First of all, St. Thomas University has a very interesting history. In the 1940s, a group of professors, mostly priests from Villanova, then college in Pennsylvania, went to Havana, Cuba, and established the Catholic University there. In 1961, after the Bay of Pigs, Castro exiled those priests and administrators and anyone else who was a non-Cuban who was heading any kind of educational institution. And so the priests landed here in Miami, and the Archbishop at the time said, would you please start a boys' college? We did have a girls' college, Barry University, and perhaps there's someone from Barry University School of Law here today. We did have a girls' college at in Miami at the time, and so they started what it was known in those days as Biscayne College. In 1984, we established our law school, among many other programs, and we also changed our name back to what it was in Havana, which was St. Thomas of Villanova. And so we call ourselves St. Thomas today. We have about 5,000 students today. We give a number of degrees on the undergraduate, graduate, doctoral level, and also at the law school. You may know that the law school has a research doctorate in intercultural human rights, a program of which I'm very proud of because we have done a lot to further the human rights of people who need good lawyering and good advocacy and good research. We have done an awful lot in the area of human trafficking, and you may hear about some of that today, although I know you're primarily concerned with contracts. I am very happy to have you. Make yourself at home, enjoy our weather, and since you have a couple of extra days, don't go home too soon. God bless your work.
Thank you. My name's Candace Zierdt. I'm the moderator for the panel from Stetson University College of Law. It's a little bit north in the Tampa Bay area in Gulfport, Florida. And I'm the moderator for this panel. I'm going to introduce we actually have 4 panelists Larry is right here. I'm hoping he will show up. He is MIA right now. If anybody sees him walk through the door, I want him in the seat, so let me know. I first realized that there's probably a number of you, I know we have quite a few law students here who actually don't know Linda, which is your loss. But I would like to force Linda to stand up. This is Linda Rusch, the woman that we are honoring. Linda's the woman that we are honoring today, and I actually knew her when we both lived in the frozen tundra lands. She was in Minnesota, I was in North Dakota, and we both had the good sense to get to somewhere warm, or at least I'm a little warmer. I got to Florida, and she's in Washington. So I'd like to take this opportunity, and if I actually introduced everybody on the panel in the way I should, it would take up the whole time. And I don't have time to do that. So I'm going to just say a little bit about them for those of you who don't know them, and then we will basically go in alphabetical order, and everybody can speak a little bit about Linda. And then if we have time at the end, if anybody has any questions, I know Linda would be happy to answer them. She had no idea I was going to say that. So the first person who's going to speak is Louis Higgins. He is from West Academic, and he has been a longtime publisher for Linda Rusch, and he's going to start us off in a minute. After that, we're going to hear from Amy Boss. She's the trustee professor of law at Drexel, one of the nation's leading commercial law scholars. She's an expert in legal issues in electronic commerce and on codifying international commercial law through treaty. She's a member of the Council of the American Law Institute and the first professor and second woman to chair the business law section of the American Bar Association, which I think was a particularly wonderful thing to do. The next person who we will hear from is Neil Cohen. Neil Cohen is the Jeffrey, I hope I say this right, D. Forcelli Professor of Law at Brooklyn Law School, where he teaches courses in domestic and international commercial law, contracts, and conflicts of laws. Professor Cohen's been a member of the faculty at Brooklyn since 1985. Prior to that, he was at Seton Hall. He's director of the research of the Uniform Commercial Code Permanent Editorial Board. He's been a key participant in major domestic and international law reform projects with respect to commercial transactions for over 20 years. Hopefully after that, we'll hear from Larry Garvin. He is the Lawrence D. Stanley Professor of Law at Michael E. Moritz College of Law in Ohio State. He's also a leading scholar in the area of commercial and contracts law who's written extensively in the commercial and contracts area. He was an observer for the Article 2 drafting committee for the revision process, and so I think he got to know Linda Rusch rather intimately during that time. Well, very well during that time. Yeah, I saw that. Okay, I don't know why they asked me to be moderator. I'm not a morning person. And also through the ABA business law section, and yeah, don't tell him. And the AALS leadership in various sections. Lastly, but not least, will be Stephen Sepinuck, who is the Associate Dean for Administration and Professor of Law at Gonzaga, where he's been on the faculty since 1991. He's authored articles on a variety of subjects. He's written 9 books, some of those with Linda Rusch, and won awards for both his teaching and his scholarship. In the 1990s, he served as the advisor to the drafting committee that revised Article 9 of the UCC. He's chaired the Task Force on Deposit Accounts from 2000 to 2006 to 2009. He served as chair of the ABA's UCC committee, where I got to know him a little better. All of these people have had the great opportunity to work with Linda throughout her years in academia, and they'll spend a little bit of time talking about that. So, Amy? Oh, I'm sorry. So, Larry, right? You were over there. I was going alphabetically.
Hi, I'm Louis Higgins. Copies of my speech are going to be over on the table later this afternoon. It's called One of These Things Is Not Like the Others. I haven't taken a sales class. I haven't taken a secure transactions class. I haven't taken a payment systems class. I've not taken a commercial law survey class. But I have been it is very sad, but I have been working with Linda for about 15 years now. And when Jennifer asked me to speak, my first reaction was, oh my God, I hate public speaking. My second reaction was, oh, maybe I could sing instead of talking, because I'm not scared of public singing. But you guys probably wouldn't enjoy that. So then I thought maybe we could roast Linda. And she seemed up for the idea, but I think that probably would be bad for me professionally. So I thought about this a little more, and I realized this is the easiest thing I've ever had to do, to say nice things about Linda Rusch. As I said, we've been working together for pretty close to 15 years. She's been a tremendously helpful author. We come to her with good ideas, we come to her with bad ideas. She's always willing to talk to us, she's always willing to help, she offers to help. She's incredibly fun, as all of you know, and most importantly, from my, it's not true at all, but sort of most importantly from my perspective on paper, I think we've done about 20 contracts with Linda in the time that I've worked with her, and she hasn't missed one deadline, to the best of my recollection. I've worked with some authors who have one contract and have missed 20 deadlines. Nobody in here, though, of course. It has always been just an incredible pleasure to work with her, and I couldn't be happier to be sitting here saying this, and I couldn't be happier to see her being honored, so thanks.
Thank you very much, Louis. Now we will go in alphabetical order. Amy.
Well, Larry, I hope this is not a roast, because I don't think the others of us on the panel are at all funny. So you're going to have to excuse us. There are a lot of young people in the room. You don't know Linda, you don't know me, but I can attest to the fact that Linda was at one point young, or at least younger than she is today. I've known Linda for over almost a quarter of a century, I would say. And she started first, or the first time I met her was not as an academic, but it was in the American Bar Association through the Uniform Commercial Code Committee of the ABA's business law section. And Linda was one of those people, one of the very few women there at the time. There were not that many of us, so we all found each other quite quickly. And it was clear that Linda was going to do something. 20 years ago, almost to the date, Linda walked into an Article II drafting committee meeting. Now, this was a project I'd been involved with for some years, since it was in a study committee process. But Linda came in, she sat in the back of the room, she started making some very astute comments, and 2 years later, while many of us had toiled in the ranks, Linda had risen to take it over as associate reporter for the drafting of the revised Article II of the Uniform Commercial Code. Well, since then, I've watched Linda. I've worked with her. I've had the pleasure of knowing her. And now we're Facebook friends. So I've actually watched what she's done in the 3 years since she's retired. And there are these wonderful pictures of her climbing mountains. She does a lot of hiking. Well, I have to say that to me epitomizes what Linda has done throughout her career, which is find a good mountain and try and climb it. And there are going to be some mountains that you're not going to be able to successfully climb, but there are other mountains that you're going to get up there and the view is going to be absolutely fantastic. And I think that really sums up Linda's career. It's also, for the young people in the room, probably a cautionary tale, which is you're not going to succeed in everything. But because you're not going to succeed in everything, the successes are going to be all that more wonderful. Well, what do I mean by that? And in particular, what made Linda rise to the top? What made her be the person that we're honoring this morning? We have lots of academics here, or law students, and I know that some of my colleagues on the panel are going to talk about Linda as a drafter, so I'm going to leave all of that aside. And those of you who are interested in a scholarship or textbooks, hey, you know how to do that research, so I'm going to leave it to you. I'm going to talk about Linda in another capacity, which is as a real bridge between academia and practice, as a communicator, as a person who's able to take what's going on in the legal community and bring it back into the classroom, bring it back into a scholarship, but also take what's happening in the academic world back into practice. And it's that type of cross-fertilization that I think has been so important and that has really affected many of us in the room, and we've benefited from that cross-fertilization. Well, I talk about having worked with Linda, and let me talk a little bit about where I've worked with Linda, because for those of you who don't know her, these details may make you really appreciate what she's done. I mentioned initially the American Bar Association, which is where I met her. The American Bar Association is an organization of, I think it was at that stage about 50,000 lawyers throughout the country, one of the largest professional organizations, and we're talking about a subset of the ABA in the country. And it is an organization that's really devoted in many ways to the improvement of the law. Indeed, many of the revisions to the Uniform Commercial Code that you have studied in law school or you teach about in law school originated within the business law section of the American Bar Association, and more particularly within the UCC committee. Some of the things that you hear about, electronic commerce, the Uniform Electronic Transactions Act, again, all can be traced back to the Uniform Commercial Code Committee. That's where I met Linda. And Linda established herself. She worked her way up. She chaired the Uniform Commercial Code Committee for 4 years, which is, I know, an arduous task because I did it too, and succeeded in impressing people so much that she later, following again in my shoes, became the chair of the business law section of the American Bar Association. Now, you might think that, okay, that's fine, but that is a position which is a demonstration of the utmost confidence that the practicing bar, and particularly the business lawyers of this country, had in Linda. And it wasn't just the ability to manage an organization, and I might say she was incredible at management, and I've heard that from so many sources, but she was also keenly tied in to all of the legal developments that were occurring throughout the section. Now, that's the American Bar Association. It doesn't stop there. There's another group, which is the American College of Commercial Finance Lawyers, which is a small organization. You cannot join it. You have to be elected to, nominated and elected to serve. And it's dedicated to promoting the field of commercial law through education, legislative reform, and other activities. Linda became involved very early on and rose to be president of the American College. Again, a job that put her in contact with some of the best practitioners in the commercial finance area throughout the country, and contributed both, again, to her scholarship and to her teaching. We've also served, along with Neil, on the permanent editorial board of the Uniform Commercial Code within the American Law Institute, and on numerous, or should I say innumerable drafting committees, some of which, by the way, have been successful. Was there one? Yeah, Article 7, which most of you have never heard of, successful. Some which have not been successful, like the Article 2 revisions. So again, that goes back to my comment that some of these things we succeeded in and some that we don't. Well, that gives me, I think that gives you a taste of the things that Linda has done that makes her so unique. But again, does that really explain how she's risen to the top? Well, here I decided that I needed to do some research. Now, research. Some of you think about going to the books. Now we do it on the web, right? So I start going out and I start Googling. And I found some interesting things. What's the first thing that pops up when you Google Linda? How about rate my professors? Okay. All right. Well, rate my professors. She's sitting there going, oh my gosh, she didn't do that. And it's interesting because there are two themes that came out of Rate My Professors that I think really say a lot about Linda. One was that she had an incredible sense of humor that came across in the classroom. And again, that's a theme that I've heard quite frequently in the research, this extensive research that I've done into Linda's background. And the other is that she's a hard worker, that she's hard, she's direct, she knows what she tells you what you want to know, but she makes sure that you know it. The comment that I liked most when I looked at rate my professors is this one. They don't call her the Terminator for nothing. Don't do the work and she will fail you. So, but that comment, I must say, was in the context of admiration, the recognition that here is someone who demands of her students the same thing that she demands of herself, which is hard work. But it's hard work that leads somewhere most of the time. What are some of the other things that I found in my research? Well, again, I tried to reach out and see what if she'd done beyond the scholarship, and discovered that Linda's name pops up in a lot of different places. So what do I mean by a lot of different places? I mean, you go and you look at the dullest, what's the absolute dullest area that you could ever think about? Regulation CC of the Federal Reserve Board, and the proposed amendments to deal with remote deposit capture and remotely created checks. And okay, pretty dull, right? And Linda's name pops up. She's in there critiquing the regulations. Here is a law professor who doesn't have anything better to do with her time but to write an extensive comment on these regulations pending before the Federal Reserve Board, pointing out how they got it all wrong. Their definitions don't work. It doesn't hang together. And here's the key: when applied in practice is going to be disastrous. Now, of course, she starts out as a law professor and starts out with a hypo. And she works through the hypo and in front of the Federal Reserve Board demonstrates that it does not hang together. Now, this was a comment that she posted in 1911. The Federal Reserve Board failed to, 2011.
It was not 1911. I don't know what the age thing is that's going on.
Oh, no, we're not aging, no. This is in 2011, and I might point out the Federal Reserve Board never finalized those proposed regs. Instead, they 2 weeks ago announced that they were trying once again. They were trying to address the comments. Linda's nodding her head. They took what she had to say into account. This is where Linda's made a difference. Not many people recognize it, but very important to show this bridge between academia and what is going on. I found her name in other contexts, some of which she may have been responsible for, some of which she may not have. Comments, oh, okay, Linda, were you responsible for the comments to UNCITRAL on digital rights management? You sent the letter, but I have a hunch other people did the work. But she's always there honchoing other people. And indeed, it's the mentoring that she's done that's earned her a lot of recognition elsewhere. Linda is the recipient of an award that's given out annually by the business law section called the Glass Cutter Award for women who have cut through the glass to succeed in their profession. And she received that award. The Glass Cutter Award is named after the first female chair of the business law section. And in the announcement for her award, this appeared: Linda Rusch has been a tireless and determined supporter of women, encouraging their participation in the work and leadership of the section. A strong advocate for women's career development, Professor Rusch also has served as formal or informal mentor and advisor, as well as friend to countless young women lawyers with whom she has worked over the years. Now, Linda mentors, but the other thing she does is, I think it's important, is she doesn't just, like many academics, write about a topic and leave it. She tries to involve other people, to bring them along, test her ideas, and encourage involvement in a process that can actually lead somewhere. And I'll give you some examples. One of the areas that Linda's been involved in is the whole payments area, and she was pretty instrumental, along with Stephanie Heller and Steve Harris, in organizing a symposium at the Federal Reserve Board dedicated to looking at the whole area of contemporary payments law and exploring the ability to achieve uniformity and exploring the contents of what a unified payments law might look like. Now Linda made that happen. She was one of the moderators there. She put her her words, and she actually made contributions, very substantive contributions in that area, hasn't gone anywhere, okay? But I bet that a certain number of years from now, I won't put a number on them, people will look back at that and say, yeah, that was where there were ideas that have germinated. Linda was also the subject of other empirical research that I did. And now I'm going to talk about what others have to say about Linda. Because I reached out to other professors and other practitioners, particularly throughout the country, to find out what they had to say about Linda. So let me share some of those comments with you. Leanne Crittenden is the current president of the American College of Commercial Finance Lawyers. And what Leanne wrote is, Linda is one of the most frighteningly smart and practical people I have ever met. It's hard to believe that she is a professor until you realize that she teaches one of the most practical areas of the law, the UCC. She told me once that she could look at her bank statement and see where the balance was off, and I believe it. And Leanne goes on and talks about saying that she saw another side of Linda when she was talking with some other professors, and she was frustrated while grading exams. She said sometimes the answers are so poor she wonders if the students are paying attention. In thinking about it, I think she is frustrated that she has not been able to communicate the legal principles to that student, and she is frustrated with herself as much as with the student. And I think that says a lot about Linda. She is committed to teaching, she is committed to communicating, and she sets very high standards for herself and for others. The Honorable Alvin Thompson, a U.S. District Court judge in Connecticut, was the chair of the nominating committee the year that Linda became chair of the section. And here's what Judge Thompson had to say. Linda is both an orderly and creative thinker, and the two do not always go together. She has a down-to-earth and sometimes earthy, in a humorous way, style that conveys that it is never about her, but about doing the best for the organization and its constituents. She's got it all: intellect, energy, personality, team spirit. Her style is quiet, but yet when she speaks, she does so with the authority earned by respect. She is both the paradigm of a team player and a team leader. Lynn Barr, who is a partner with Procter Goodwin, says, I don't know what to add except Linda has a truly wicked sense of humor that makes working with her a lot of fun. And then Lynn went on and talked something about hallway sex. Okay, Linda, you're going to have to explain that to me later, okay? Dixie Johnson, King and Spalding, a partner at King and Spalding, said she had the privilege to get to know Linda, again, through the business law section. Linda leads by doing. She always works hardest, focuses most clearly, cares most, organizes things best, operates most efficiently, and follows up consistently. And her consistent excellence comes in an approachable package, which makes her rare among academics and practitioners. Ed Smith, Bingham Dana, wrote that I had confidence that Linda would make a strong contribution in both jobs, because Linda succeeded Ed as both chair of the UCC committee and president of the American College of Commercial Finance Lawyers. He says that with Linda at the helm, it was a great ride at both organizations. And on substance, she was our, quote, stress tester on the PEB for the Uniform Commercial Code, and on the drafting committee for the 2010 amendments to Article 9. She could find flaws and suggest corrections to drafting that had gotten by the best of us. So congratulations to Linda from a friend, colleague, and great admirer. Oh boy, there are a lot of these. Penelope Cristoforo, who is a partner at Cleary Gottlieb, Linda has always been my to-go person on all things electronic, a sounding board on the rare Article 2 issue. Stephanie Heller, Federal Reserve Board of New York. My dealings with Linda have revolved largely around payment systems and contracts, but my experience with many academics, especially those who have left practice long ago or who have had limited practice experience, is that their research and writing drifts away from the practical and towards the metaphysical, or towards the metaphysical. Linda is one of the exceptions to that general statement. She has a voracious appetite for learning about the realities of payments operation in order to inform her writings, and more importantly, from my perspective, her work in law reform. I'm myself amazed at her level of understanding of the intricacies of something as mundane as check collection. She wishes, by the way, she had some funny stories to add, but those have been edited out. Charlie McCallum, who again is another partner, former chair of the section, talks particularly about Linda's contributions in working as the editor-in-chief of the Business Lawyer. Now, many of you may have read the Business Lawyer. Business Lawyer is the publication which is second only to the Harvard Law Review in circulation throughout the country. And Linda served as editor of the Law Review, of the Business Lawyer, and was really responsible for entirely reorganizing the management there. But Charlie particularly comments on the fact that the Business Lawyer benefited from Linda's excellent skills in writing and editing legal writing, intended primarily for an audience of practitioners. Martin Fingerhut, who is with Fingerhut Global Advisors in Toronto, wrote and said that she sets a terrific example of how to lead various meetings of an executive committee and how to lead an organization. Last but not least is a common mentor that both of us had, and I don't say it's last because there are undoubtedly more in my mailbox when I get back, which is from our common mentor, Fred Miller, who points out that Linda, while she has many, many contributions, is, quote, not an ivory tower academic. She has experience and knows the business and consumer context to which the legal rules speak. And thus, in her work, both on the PEB and working on uniform laws, she can converse with the people who would be subject to the rule and understands their concerns and benefits to them. She is a superb communicator so that her views and ideas come across clearly and unambiguously. He then came back to me and he said, that there's one thing that really epitomized too what Linda has the capability of doing, which is to take a complicated problem and come up with a very practical solution. And the example he gave was, and if any of you know Fred gets down into the minutia, so this is the minutia about 9516A. And a question that occurred about when a filing takes place. And Fred says, if you look at 9516A, communication seems the key, and 9102A16, oh gosh, says that can occur when a tangible record is sent. All recognize that is too early, but how do you deal with that? Linda says, all you have to do is tender the filing fee, and under contract law, that solves the problem. Simply so obvious and yet so brilliant. So, Linda, that I think about sums it up. Sometimes the obvious is brilliant. And my sincere thanks to everything that you've done for all of us.
Thank you, Amy. The next person we'll hear from is Neil Cohen, and I'd like to, as you've probably noticed, our missing in action is here. He says it's not his fault. He actually broke down and took a taxi when the shuttle didn't show up. So we'll hear from him. I told him I've already introduced him, but you all promised not to tell him what I said. And Neil will be next. Thank you.
Your secret's safe with me.
Thank you.
Well, unlike Linda, I'm someone who's missed a deadline here and there, so it was really nice to hear from Mr. Higgins that there are people who have missed 20 deadlines. So thank you very much. You put us all at ease.
Don't even think about it.
Okay, so let's not talk about deadlines anymore. Let's talk about Linda. It's customary to in a talk like this to describe the memorable moment when you met the honoree, this first moment that lives in your memory forever. Well, the fact of the matter is, I don't remember meeting Linda. She's just always been there. Linda's not a shining meteor that gets everyone's attention for a few minutes, then quickly fades from view, never to be seen again. She's not a comet that puts on a good show for a little while and then isn't seen again for 76 years. Linda is a constant. I don't remember when I met Linda, but I can't imagine not knowing her. I've been working in this area for over 20 years, and I suppose there's a time when I didn't know her, but I don't remember it. What I do remember is that in every project I've worked on, everything related to commercial and contract law that I've been involved in, there's always been somebody there who, in a positive, constructive, and yet at the same time intimidating, because she's so smart, way, can tell me how to do it better, and in fact to make it better. And there aren't that many people who can do that and can do it for so long and do it so well. Linda has been such a strong presence over the course of my career that there are times that I remember her being there when she probably wasn't, because I just can't imagine her not being there. If I think really hard, one of my earliest memories is my 4th birthday party, and I can place her in the crowd at our house in Cleveland, which is probably difficult because I don't think she was born yet. But it's really hard to imagine life without Linda. She's been there. She participates in everything. She adds value to everything, and she does it without calling attention to herself. And that's a remarkable thing in a person. There are a lot of people who will try to add value as an excuse to add notoriety, as an excuse to be noticed. Linda's not that way. Linda's always trying to make the product better, always trying to make better law, trying to help people understand things better. And there aren't many people who do that so well, so consistently, and have done it for so long, and Linda has added a lot of value. One of the areas in which she has added a lot of value, as almost everyone here knows, is in the Uniform Commercial Code. And in fact, that has been where the majority of my interactions with Linda have been, other than at my 4th birthday party. Linda's been involved in almost every part of the UCC. She was the reporter for the revised Article 7 of the Uniform Commercial Code, and I know Steve's going to be talking about that a lot, which is good because I won't, because my students know the nickname I have for Article 7. It's CFI, Cure for Insomnia. Whenever I can't sleep, I just pick up Article 7, and it does the trick every time. So I'm not going to talk much about Article 7. And that's not Linda's fault, by the way. That's the nature of the subject. But Linda makes it, I can stay up longer when I read Linda's version of it. But I want to talk about a different commercial law, contract law project that Linda gave a lot of time and effort to. Before I talk about the project, though, many of you, I'm sure many of you have coffee table books in your homes, and one of the most common type of coffee table book is one that has lots of pictures. You learn lots of things, and one that we have in our house is called Unbuilt Architecture. Great buildings that were designed but were somehow never built, and the fact that they were never built doesn't detract from the wonderful architecture that's in them. Well, Linda is the architect of one of the great unbuilt architectures in American law, and that's the text of Article 2 of the UCC that was approved by the American Law Institute back in 1999, not approved by the Uniform Law Commission, and as a result was never built. But the fact that it wasn't built should not lead us to forget it. And those of you who aren't familiar with that version should get a hold of it, because it's really quite a piece of work. Linda joined the team, as Amy pointed out, partway through the project, and immediately added value to it. And the Uniform Commercial Code has benefited from it greatly. One of the wonderful early scholars of the Uniform Commercial Code, Bill Hawkland, when he was writing about the code in its early days, came up with a working definition of a code. He said that a code is comprehensive, systematic, and preemptive. And he was describing a code. He was describing a body of laws, but I think in many ways what he was really doing was describing Linda, because that's how Linda works. And just one example of that we can give in that text of Article 2, which unfortunately is not the law today, is in the remedies portion of Article 2. Now, those of you who are experts in contract law, which describes just about everybody in the room here, know that remedies is an area of great debate in contract law, and it's been an area of great debate in commercial law and the law of contracts for the sale of goods in particular. And one part of that debate is how well or how poorly the Article 2 law of remedies and damages meshes with our ever more sophisticated sense of how remedies and damages ought to work in contract law. That gets debated quite openly and sometimes quite fiercely. One of the things that isn't said very loudly, well, actually I should preface this with a question. Nobody here is part of the Carl Llewellyn family, right? Okay. One of the things that's not mentioned very often is that Carl Llewellyn was a great thinker, but he wasn't a great drafter. And an example, I think, of both of those is Part 7 of Article 2, the remedies portion of Article 2. It's filled with good thoughts expressed bizarrely and expressed in ways that do not appear to have had the same author. If you look at Section 2703, the Catalog of Sellers' Remedies for Buyers' Breaches, and Section 2711, the Catalog of Buyers' Remedies for Sellers' Breaches, you would think that those would look alike. They would reflect the difference in context between the two, but they'd be organized the same way, they'd express themselves the same way. They're barely on the same planet. And it makes it very hard for, not only for law students, who every year I have to help them get through this, but it makes it hard for practicing lawyers and for judges as well. And it contributes to the somewhat chaotic law of damages under Article 2 of the UCC. And then came Linda. And one of the things that Linda was significantly involved in her role in that project was reconceptualizing, reorganizing, rewriting, and expressing clearly and unambiguously the remedies provisions in Article 2. And really, why do we care about contract law? If everything went right in life, we wouldn't need law, we wouldn't need lawyers. It goes right most of the time. But there are a lot of deals out there, but most of the law comes from that percentage of times where it goes wrong. And when it goes wrong is when you need to think about remedies. And what Linda was responsible for and did extremely well is to take the somewhat chaotic remedies provisions in old and now current Article 2 of the UCC and transform them in 29 very tightly written sections. And the fact that there are 29 of them tells us how complex the area is. But in 29 very tightly written sections, she managed to organize the legal principles, to provide guideposts for people trying to find their way through them. Not everybody spends all day on Article 2, even though some of us do. Yes, I know it's shocking, isn't it? But law has to be accessible not just to the expert, but to to the people who are just passing through, including those folks wearing black robes. So she made it comprehensive, she organized it. Simple declarative sentences, sometimes with a few clauses of complexity, but basically simple declarative sentences, and internal consistency. Now you might think, well, that's what you're supposed to do when you write law. Well, maybe so, but it's a talent not very many people have, and it's a talent that Linda certainly does. Linda's drafting in Article 2, as her drafting in every other project I've seen, is comprehensive. She doesn't just notice one thing and give you a solution for that one problem, not noticing the 17 other problems that she causes, because she doesn't cause 17 other problems. She thinks comprehensively. She thinks of the whole picture, not just the piece that she's dealing with. And as a result of that, in order to have this all make sense, she is systematic. Boy, is she systematic. Linda has one of the best organized minds I've ever known. I'm curious what her dreams are like. You know, mine just sort of float all over the place. Hers probably have an outline. So she is comprehensive and systematic. And then there's the third Hawkland criterion, preemptive. Once Linda has talked about a field, everything that was there before goes away because we see it better now, we understand it better now, and we can't imagine what it was like before we had the benefit of her thought. So Bill Hawkland may have been talking about codes, but I think he was really talking about Linda. So it is a wonderful occasion to be here for this award that's being given to Linda. The only trouble with it is that it's misnamed. It's not named correctly. It really ought to be the Lifetime Achievement So Far Award, because I don't expect her to stop. So Linda, thank you for everything you've done for all of us, and congratulations.
Thank you, Neil. And now we'll hear from Larry.
Well, thank you. It's very good to be here, finally. I will say I was tempted just to say I agree with Neil and then stop, because I do, although I don't actually remember Linda at my 4th birthday party.
You're younger than I am.
Well, there is that. I'm not sure about the 6th birthday party, though. I'll have to think that. One of the, but I do actually remember the first time I met Linda, which is at an Article 2 drafting committee meeting I think it was the Oklahoma City meeting, or one of them, 1996. And I went there as my dean gently suggesting that I should get involved in law reform, and I knew enough as an untenured faculty member that the suggestions of deans should probably be taken somewhat seriously. And so I quickly gravitated toward the ABA task force folks. And so had the pleasure of hearing Linda's generally under the breath, frequently sardonic comments about what the idiots up in front were getting wrong. Well, that's, typically, not everybody up at the front was idiots, you understand. It was the other people, it was the other idiots.
You're supposed to do the disclaimers first.
Oh, yes, that's right, yes. I have to work on that, yes, one of these days. Because of the successive attempts to reinvent the wheel, or to take something that was complex and fix it by adding 3 or 4 more layers of complexity. So then Linda moved to the other side of the table. And I'm not sure whether it's in the old phrase poacher turned gamekeeper or gamekeeper turned poacher. But in any event, she changed in the shape in that. And in that capacity, we were all treated to Linda's persistent and even often successful attempts to figure out what needed to be done and then do it. In a most direct, straightforward, and understandable way possible. And I definitely agree with Neil that Linda's work on Revised Article 2, especially the remedies portions, qualify as genuinely elegant in the clarity, the simplicity, and the power of the language and the tremendous clarity overall that it gives to a not always clear field. So I could keep talking about that, but Neil has already talked about that, and it's a little too soon for reruns. So what I would like to do is concentrate on some of Linda's writings on law reform, in particular her post-Article 2 article in the SMU Law Review, and a later article in the Temple Law Journal, which has as its modest goal the unification of the entire law of products liability. Which incidentally she pulls off very well. So in each case, I think what we have is, what Linda has done is clarify careless thinking. She's identified the key issues and proposed direct and sound solutions. And I think when I've gone through Linda's work, and I will say that coming at it from the UCC angle, I saw, well, she's obviously an extremely active UCC scholar and law reformer, and then I said, oh, but there are these other related fields that I don't follow where she is also one of the leading people, and then there's this other field where she's also one of the leading people. It's rather intimidating, actually, for those of us who struggle to become more or less competent in one part of commercial law, to find somebody who is actually supremely competent in all parts of commercial law and related fields. So, and in reading through Linda's work, I think that the two overriding concepts that I find could be called clarity and balance, and I think we see that throughout. And if you take the article in the SMU Law Review, which, as it happens, has balance as the last word in the title, a history and perspective of revised Article 2, the never-ending saga of a search for balance. We're still hoping for balance. I think it may eventually come. In that, I will say that if I had been in Linda's shoes, I would have been very hard-pressed not to write a thoroughly mean-spirited and vicious and much-deserved attack on the leadership of the Uniform Law Commission. It is, that's what my temptation would have been, being a thoroughly unpleasant and nasty person, as is my nature. But Linda, I thought, rose well above that and wrote what I thought was really an extremely judicious and even-handed analysis of the situation, with sensible suggestions for improving the drafting process and noting the leading problems involved. I won't go through the article bit by bit, although I will say in the recounting of the history of it, I really did enjoy when you quoted Fred Miller and Jean Lebrun. Fred, executive director of the Uniform Law Commission, and Jean Lebrun was the president at the time. When they were talking to ALI and told ALI that they shouldn't delay approval of Article 2, that it wouldn't benefit from further work, that it was perfect as it was, and then of course 2 months later they pulled it for further work. It was, I was, yes, zing. So maybe that little one, but that was using their own words to impeach them, which I think is fair enough. What I think was particularly valuable is the discussion of the role of interest groups and how they influence the uniform law drafting process. Although we normally think about capture as something that's an agency capture or the like, I think Linda was quite correct to say that it wasn't capture of the drafting committee, which I don't think was captured at all during the revised process. Now, it may be that there was capture of the process outside of the drafting committee, and in particular with the leadership of Nakuzel. After all, this business did go out for over a decade. If you start with a PEB study report, yes. Well, you can see that was what, 1990, and then you. So 87, and so to 99, and then with the amendments thereafter. And so people came and went, and difficult for the non-funded to actually keep a place at the table, and difficult indeed for anybody to remember what anybody had done even one meeting before, much less, oh yeah, we decided that in 1993, and no, you didn't. Tends to be the result. Now, what I thought was especially useful and relevant for our discussion here is Linda's careful analysis of what defeats the attempts to create balance in uniform law drafting, which is something that, as uniform laws continue to be promulgated, it's something that should be important, I think, to all of us. And her observations, just to give a couple of them, I thought were particularly germane. For example, it's the oxymoron that is uniform state law is one of the great complications in this process, as Linda has pointed out, because anybody who can provide a credible threat of threatening enactability wins, or at least can keep other people from winning, which is perhaps more to the point. And so, of course, much as I would like to think that, I speak now as a uniform law commissioner myself, though not at the time, it's not my fault, it's not as though I have the big battalions on my side when I go to a state legislature and say, you really ought to propose the uniform, whatever the silly little topic we're dealing with, act is. It is the auto dealers, it is the auto manufacturers, it is the people with the big battalions who tend to be listened to. But the problem is that in what is a democratic process, as Linda has also observed, if you are going to give people voices at the table, the problem is that they may start shouting, I suppose. And especially when people have no bottom line, which was inevitable and I found, as an observer, incredibly frustrating. Improve this. Well, will you say, will you go along with it if we do? Well, I don't know, but we'll be closer, maybe, possibly. Just keep improving it to our in our advantage, meaning that we win. And enactability, especially a problem, as you know, for the UCC, which the Uniform Law Commission constantly calls its crown jewel, which is and so any threat to uniformity is looked at with absolute and abject terror on the part of leadership, and thus you have a process that is remarkably easy to hijack, and especially a process that was sort of a non-process. Those of us for whom the words hub and spoke induce nightmares will know that the process took an unfortunate wrong turn at the beginning, with the result that you had attempts to harmonize that which could not be harmonized, and with the resulting problems. So Linda ends with some legitimate skepticism about the ability of the present uniform law process to come up with something that is democratic and balanced. And the balance, I think, is the critical thing. I think I am not going too far out on a limb to say that there seems to be some trouble in, say, Congress about achieving balanced results. And that there may be a tendency to get captured by one side or another. And Linda pointed this out well before Congress demonstrated it for the great pleasure of all of us. Now, one example of Linda's balance, balance and clarity, I think, comes out of her Temple article, which I think has certainly changed my thinking about the quagmire that is product liability law. Because, as you know, a lot of us in the academy make names for ourselves by taking outrageous positions on more or less important issues, the normal positions typically having been occupied for some years. And usually that's because we're at the service of one legal theory or another, whichever law and is fashionable at the time. And so, now, Linda certainly employs these theoretical tools in her own work, but they are the servants rather than the masters, which I think is incredibly is rare it is somewhat like pointing out that common sense is really quite uncommon, and is something that I think characterizes Linda's work. So with clarity and balance, I think her 2003 article in Temple is a magnificent illustration, because any of us who have had to teach products liability, well, actually, I usually try to avoid most of the products liability part except for pure warranty, because A, I can blame it on the torts teachers, who are, of course, the ones who are supposed to be doing it. And B, it is at that unfortunate intersection where nothing actually seems to make sense, because you have completely disparate concepts that are running into one another. Well, Linda proposed something that is, I think, as is so often true of good ideas, fairly obvious once it's said. It's never obvious before it's said. And in this case, it was, well, why don't we just get rid of the contract and tort language? Why we have the silo of contract and we have the silo of tort to take? And this is a great problem, and this leads to inconsistent results. And again, Linda used a hypothetical at the start of the article to show in a fairly ordinary products liability setting how tort law and contract law kept going in wildly different, inconsistent, and bizarre directions. And so what did Linda do? You mentioned the 20-odd sections of the remedy sections. Linda pulled it off in 9. Count them, 9 sections, something that brings product liability law into clear focus in a balanced way, and that I thought remarkably, and better than anything I've ever seen from anyone else, from William Prosser down, unites these different areas of thinking in a commonsensical way, something that, if it were enacted, the products liability course would go from 3 credits to sort of tack on to something else, because everything would be clear, and you have these 9 sections. They solve all the problems, and just the rest is commentary. So I think that it's an excellent example, and one I commend to your attention, of Linda's ability to take areas that most of us quail at assuming, taking a large and disparate and complex body of both case law and theory, and synthesizing them in a way that at first read it may be deceptively simple, and then it's actually not deceptive at all. It's yes, actually those 2 pieces do fit together. I had never thought of it that way. And it really is quite a tribute that to Linda's clarity of thought that she has, I think, pulled off something that I think no one else has really in what is an amazingly complicated area. So it's now, so in conclusion, I suppose, I like everyone else here, I remain, as I was as a very junior professor, and now slightly less junior, quite intimidated, really, by Linda's capacity, both in breadth and depth. It's difficult enough to have depth in one area, but Linda seems to range across any subject with dollar signs in it, and with ease, and to do so in a way that is accessible, that is comprehensive, that is thoughtful, and that is expressed with, I will say, from comments from time to time, perhaps very directly. I think I can say when you and Jim White were in the same room, the discussions were interesting, though not necessarily always repeatable.
You should have heard the discussions with her and Harry Sigmund.
In
the women's room.
This is there's obviously much more to hear about this.
That's your
So it is a great honor to have been asked to say a few words about Linda, and also a great responsibility, because it is so difficult even to capture one small aspect of Linda's wide-ranging and tremendous ability. And so all I can do is thank you for all that you have contributed and will contribute to our common field.
Thank you very much, Larry. And now, Stephen, I hope you will stay away from the conversations in the women's bathrooms. I'm going to want to know how you heard them. But in any event, please tell us a little bit about Linda and how you know her.
Well, first, I have to say I feel like a complete fraud up here. To be on a panel with Larry and Amy and Neil, when Candace introduced them, and you know they all have endowed chairs. I don't. You know, I got a chair that isn't even well upholstered. You know, Neil himself is getting 2 Lifetime Achievement Awards this year. Amy, I think of the queen of the UCC. So the only reason I'm here at all is because I had the good sense to grab onto the coattails of Linda Rusch. And let me just explain a little bit of what she's done for me. Amy talked about Linda as a mentor. We're only 3 months apart in age, but I think of Linda as a colleague and a friend, a co-author, but also as a mentor. She seconded my nomination to the ALI. I think Neil was the proposer, actually. I don't know, but suspect that she whispered in Stephanie Heller's ear that I might be a good vice chair of the UCC committee. I don't know, but I suspect that she suggested to John Zierdt that I might be a good reporter for the Uniform Certificate of Title for Vessels Act. So I think a lot of the things that I've had the opportunity to do are because of Linda, and I know she's done this for many, many other people. So I'm here, I think, representing all of those that she has mentored over the year. Now, a lot of the discussion this morning by Neil and Larry in particular dealt with sales and contracts, and of course that's fitting given this conference. But Linda's fingerprints are all over the UCC. You know, as Amy mentioned, she served as chair of the ABA UCC committee, and that she was on the permanent editorial board. Neil and Larry have talked about her as associate reporter for the Article 2 amendments. Amy briefly mentioned her role in the payments project that was started at the Fed. I think my favorite article of Linda's is her 2008 article in the Chicago Kent Law Review, which talks about reimagining the payment system. And if you haven't read that, and you know, if you're not interested in payments, why would you? Well, it's really a brilliant piece where she deals with just one aspect of a problem in the payment system, unauthorized payments. There are other problems. You can have mistakes in mistaken transmission, and you can have intercepted payments, and you can have intermediary failure. But she was dealing with just unauthorized payments, and she lays out 4 or 5 principles which would rest as a framework for reimagining the whole area of payments law. And I agree with Amy that time hasn't come yet, but it will come. And when that area is revisited, I have no doubt that the first thing people will look at are Linda's article back from 2008. She was reporter for Article 7. Okay, so who in this room can tell me of a badly decided Article 7 case? No, not you. Okay, now let me rephrase the question. Who in this room can tell me any Article 7 case? Yeah. I got. I think there's a reason for that. I think Article 7, aside from being, you know, a little dry, is so well drafted it's become invisible, and that we don't get Article 7 cases because Linda did her job so well. Let me give you another example of that. During the Article 9 amendments that were completed in 2010, we came to the last meeting. Do you remember where we were, Neil, for the last meeting?
They all blend
Yeah,
together.
they're always in the least desirable locations because that's all the Uniform Law Commission can afford. So the meetings are always a Friday all day, Saturday all day, and Sunday morning. Before Sunday morning, or on Saturday night, everybody's going out to dinner. Not Linda. Linda's working over the draft. She and I are working together, and Linda discovered, a circularity problem in the amendments to 9.316. And so as Neil and, well, not to blame you, as Ed was walking out to go to dinner, we point out that, we got something we need to revisit. So thinking they were all done, they all went out to dinner, and then the next morning, the very last thing we got to present, Linda graciously allowed me to present this as if I was the one that had discovered this circularity problem, but it was really Linda. And they changed the rule. At the last minute, it was the last change made in the drafting committee was to revise the amendments so as to not create the circularity. And that was because of Linda's hard work and dedication while everyone else was going to dinner. I think because of all that, this program here is misnamed. It's entitled The Works of Linda Rusch, but I think it should be The Legacy of Linda Rusch. And I think she has an incredible legacy because of 4 principal characteristics. First, she is indefatigable. I've always wanted to say that word in public. Indefatigable. You know, as Amy mentioned, she chaired the UCC committee of the business law section. She then chaired the business law section, which itself is a full-time job. She was president of the American College of Commercial Finance Lawyers. She's just inexhaustible. You can email her at 6 in the morning, and she will email you back. That she's just always working. Second, she has an incredible attention to detail, and I think it's been alluded to by everyone else on this panel so far, but let me give you 2 examples that have not been mentioned. Several years ago, Linda and I were asked to draft a commercial law code for the Kalispel tribe. It's one of the Native American tribes in Washington. Now, for those of you who are really not just a whole commercial code, just Article 9, just secure transactions. Now, we could have just used Carl Berger's Model Tribal Secure Transactions Law. Carl wrote a wonderful condensed version of Article 9, improves upon 9406 and 9408, condenses and reorganizes. It's wonderful. We could have just done that, but that wasn't Linda's way. She said, well, we got to first start off by figuring out what the Kalispel law is. And so she got out the entire Kalispel code because she wanted to understand all its property concepts upon which we could then build a commercial law for the Kalispel tribe. And so that was the way we worked. I didn't read the whole Kalispel code. Linda did. And we worked from that, and we built it, and the Kalispel tribe enacted. So there's what a success story. Now, I have to say, in fairness, that they have since repealed it. But no doubt it wasn't because of Linda's work. Another example of her attention to detail is in the restatement third of restitution and unjust enrichment, just recently finalized by the ALI. A wonderful, wonderful work. And for those of you who teach contracts, if you do not have a copy of this restatement on your desk or somewhere in your office, go get one, because I can't imagine how you could teach contracts without understanding and referencing the restatement of restitution. And Andy Cole was a wonderful reporter for this project, and just incredible, second only to Neil in his restatement of suretyship and guarantee. But Linda went through every draft to look for any inconsistency in any of the illustrations between those illustrations and anything in the UCC. And every time she caught one, she would politely point it out to Andy, and Andy was always gracious and admiring of Linda and appreciative of this work. And so I think you will find that there are no inconsistencies in the restatement of restitution in the UCC, and that's all because of Linda. Her third, I think, incredible characteristic is one of collaboration. I think it was 1993 or 1994, Linda suggested to me at an Article 9 drafting committee that we write a book on secure transactions. And she outlined for me her approach. She said, one of us writes something, and the other rewrites it, and then the first one rewrites it, and the second one rewrites it again, and we keep going back and forth until we're both happy. I'd never quite seen an approach like that before, but I took her at her word, and the first draft of Chapter 1 she sent me, and I edited quite a bit. Linda takes absolutely no offense at all to anything that's done. And if she doesn't like what you've done, she won't change it back to the way she had it. She'll look for some third solution that would address whatever concern I had, but solve whatever concern she has. And we've written quite a few books together, and there's sort of been a tension between us. We never fight about anything except formatting. But I always want it to be understandable. And Linda wants it to be correct. And it's not always possible to harmonize those two principles, but Linda does. But it's always about the work product. It's not about the ego. It's always about getting to a better end result. And that's a marvelous attribute to have in a collaborator. The fourth characteristic she has, second to none, is her sense of humor, and I think Amy has alluded to it already. It is not possible to have a conversation with Linda, whether it is 30 minutes or 30 seconds, in which there is no laughter at some point. My children and wife just the other night were fondly remembering a time when Linda revealed her farm girl roots. When she discussed, was it an oatmeal processing plant that was nearby? And she discussed the 3 levels of smell. On a good day, it smelled like a wet dog. And on a bad day, it smelled like a dead wet dog. And on a really bad day, it smelled like a dead, burning wet dog. So these are the standards that we now use in my household, now that we have a dog, thanks. But I think Linda's probably greatest legacy won't be in anything related to what we've talked about today, but that will be in her role as a parent. Linda, as some of you may know, has 2 daughters. One's about to get married. They're both very well accomplished. One was in the Peace Corps, the other is a scientist, and they're very smart. So Linda learned early on as a mother that if she told them in advance what sanction would occur for any wrong behavior, her children would engage in the calculus about whether the crime was worth the time. So seizing upon this, she created a different approach to parenting, which she describes as arbitrary and capricious punishment. So, you may do something, you murder your best friend, well, okay, don't do it again. You were late for, dinner, complete asset forfeiture. And she said it worked very effectively. I must say I have not had the courage to try it with my boys. But I will ask, so why is this not one of the principles in your 2008 article relating to the payment system? I would think, well, that would get the payment system to work really well, arbitrary and capricious punishment. Okay, so...
It describes how students think we grade.
That it does. We've been up here for so long, and I'm afraid we've bored everybody. Linda, it has been just an absolute privilege to work with you for the last 10 years, to call you a friend and a colleague and a co-author. I know my life is so much enriched because I have known you and know you, and I cannot express how thankful I am for having that opportunity and for everything you've done for me and for the field of commercial law. Thank you very much.
before the panel, I did offer for Linda, I offered Linda an opportunity for rebuttal. And she said that she felt like she wouldn't, so I'm assuming you still don't?
I just want to say thank you.
Okay, I thought you might want to say that.
It's a little embarrassing. I was very nervous about our new stick of deodorant. Because I had no idea what you guys were going to say, since I've known you all for a long time. And we spent many, many weekends together at mediocre, medium-priced hotels near major airports. And so, thank you for all of your kind words. And I would be remiss if I didn't say my spouse, Plenary here, has supported me through all of this. And my brother, Mike, and Tracy flew down from the frozen north. I'm sure it was just to be in Miami area. To be here with me today, but I really appreciate all of your words, and I love working with all of you. And I did think to myself on the way here that a Lifetime Achievement Award, and crap, I think I'd be closer to dead. But I really, really appreciate it, and thank you, everyone.
Thank you. We do have a few more minutes. I don't know if there's anybody who's dying to make a comment. Linda was hoping they were done, but I'm also looking for Jennifer. She snuck out on me. So, well, those of you who don't know Linda, those of you who are dying to hear this again, it's going to be on YouTube. I know that's going to get a lot. I'm not kidding, Linda. There will be a lot of hits. We're going to count how many hits you get. So I also just want to, I'm glad that I had the opportunity to moderate it. And I think those of you who don't know Linda, you can see we've just barely even touched the tip of the iceberg and how she's mentored and added so much to contracts in the commercial law field. So one last time, thank you again very much, and we can take a break. Thank you, Linda. So we can take a break, and I'm sure Jennifer will be in here shortly. Our next panel start at 10:45.
Probably still the same. Do you have time? You're right.